My name's Mike Houlahan. I'm with a company called PullString, which was formerly known as Toy Talk, and I will give a talk here briefly on conversational design. So I, like all in this room, share the excitement of the opportunity in front of us, that with these messaging platforms, there's an opportunity to create lasting connections that feel native to the messaging medium. And we do that through a combination of art and science. And so the power of chatbots really lies in the intimacy of the connection, right? And I think anyone just needs to look at their messaging history, right, to understand the power and the intimacy that happens through these messaging platforms. These conversations are direct, they're brief, that shorthand can be very emotionally charged, and this in here lies the opportunity. We reference art and science because, like many that have talked here today, there is a real craft to the conversation itself. We believe at PullString this really is a new art form, that conversational experiences, whether they happen in a messaging medium, or in a voice-based experience, in an interactive gaming experience. These will change the way consumers actually consume media. And obviously the science part of that is the NLP and AI piece of the puzzle. So like Omar and others that have talked on this, we too believe that a persona is very critical to the success of a bot. It's not just a character. It could be the voice of a brand or the voice of a productivity bot itself. So I'm going to talk about conversational design, and I'm going to do that in reference to 3 experiences that we've recently published. At the top, Hello Barbie was the first conversational IoT device. Came to market in holiday in partnership with Mattel. This was a very open-ended dialogue. There were actually 8,000 lines in Barbie that allowed kids to speak with Barbie, whether they want to talk about dreams or pets or their friends or their school. And so very open-ended conversational design. Jesse Humani was published on Messenger. We were a launch partner there. This was a day-in-the-life experience with Jesse. This is an example of a story arc. And again, had a very different conversational design. And then finally, most recently, we brought to market a Call of Duty bot, and we did that in conjunction with Activision. So at the time, Activision wanted to promote the new release of their game, Infinite Warfare. They actually drove their audience to Messenger, where they could actually chat with Lieutenant Reyes, a new character from the new game, understand and tease some of the elements of the new game, and their fans of Call of Duty could actually view a trailer and receive a digital good as part of this experience. So here's an example of a live promotional event. This drove over 6 million messages in a 48-hour period, and so I think it is also a testimony to the possibility of this medium. So let me talk about conversational design. So where to start? You want to start with the right writer in at the beginning. And too many times we've seen bot builders make the same mistake here, right? They're anxious to get going. A bunch of engineers and developers get in a room, they start to code this thing, and then they actually have to backtrack. It's super important to get the person who's going to be responsible for the content in the bot in on the ground floor. So that individual is involved in the actual design, can understand the conversational flows that are actually going to drive the outcomes or the tasks. And it's also important to get the right individual. Most writers come out of the linear arts. They're screenplay or movie or TV writers. And what's actually needed here is an interactive writer. So we look for folks that have a background in gaming, who have and understand sort of the interactive aspect of what they're building. Because in this screenplay, you actually write lines 1, 3, 5, 7. And you have to anticipate what the user is going to be responding back. It's different, a different skill set, and important to get the right capability there. So once you have the right individual on the ground, here's what to focus on. So personalize the content. And I'm just going to go for the low-hanging fruit here, right? So our belief is that if a user has a history with a bot, there's an expectation that that bot should know who I am, right? This can be very simple, but if you blow that out of the gate, I think that's the fastest way you can actually lose a user. It could be as simple as just greetings at time of day. You know, something that actually makes makes that a personal and sort of meaningful interaction. Second, personality. So I could speak at length on personality. I'll offer a couple tips here. We like to visualize what the persona of the bot is, you know, through relating that to actual real people, whether that be famous individuals or actors who have personality. That gives a vision for the persona that will apply to the bot. The other thing we like to do is really be thoughtful on what the bot is expert on, what the bot is knowledgeable on, and what the bot won't speak to at all. Because what the bot doesn't speak to is equally important as to what it will speak to and how you actually handle that. The next point here is guiding the conversation. This has been referenced in the talks today. We use the analogy of keep it on the rails, but allow for a natural detour. And what that means for us, right, is that users will take a conversation off the rails, but ultimately the bot needs to guide that back towards an end destination and an outcome. You need to mirror the language of messaging. So again, I'll reinforce what others have said. Respond in brevity. I can't tell them how many times I've turned on a bot, right? And I get, you know, paragraphs of responses from the bot. And when you use the font size that I have on my screen, you know, all of a sudden 3 or 4 responses, it's gone, and I'm done with the bot. So respond with brevity. You have to understand the slang and acronyms of the messaging medium, right? This is a challenge for NLU. But understanding how users speak, obviously, is key to the success here. Understand the use and interpret emoticons, images, and other rich media. We also think pace is very important here, right? So it's, again, helping to reinforce the natural aspect of this communication channel. So the use of typing indicators is important, how fast the bot responds. We utilize time-based delays so that there is a slight natural feel to this. And just imagine if the bot has failed out. What if you see a typing indicator for a few seconds and then a very polite, let me get back to you on that? I think that aids in that fail case and actually speaks to the natural sort of pace of the interaction. The need to understand intents in context. So this is not just an NLU issue. Intents are so dependent on where and what state of the conversation you're in. We empower the author to be able to do that. And so the author is actually designing those intents and assigning those intents in specific nodes of the conversation. And that really addresses the issue of being able to understand a user's intent within context. User testing. So many people will say, hey, we're going to do some beta testing. You know, they'll just open it up to folks in the company, right? So I think there's an obvious flaw in that approach. We learn a ton by using external test companies that really help us understand where users are having trouble in understanding what types of responses we get, so we can actually write the content to those responses. We use the same analytics on the back end, you know, with that testing group, so we know where we need to add content that doesn't exist. And then finally, optimize. Once you've published a bot, we like to use the analogy of a stand-up comedian, right? So you'll test your material, you'll go up on stage, you'll actually deliver it, you'll figure out what jokes are working, what's not. We have analytics that use heat maps to actually show you where the deepest engagement is in certain branches of the conversation. We also use ML techniques to obviously surface intents where content needs to be written for. And so those are some of the lessons we've learned in the experience of designing conversation. Our platform is called PullString. It puts the power of NLP and AI directly into the hands of the bot creator so they can actually implement those intents local to the context of a conversation. Enterprise class in terms of its authoring environment and its scalability. There was, I thought, a useful question earlier about tool sets, right? And tool sets that are designed for designers versus tool sets that are for developers. I think our answer there is that it needs to be both. It actually needs to be both simultaneously. And so why do we think that? So one, the market is moving incredibly fast. So you want your engineering team and the folks that are writing the content for your bot to be able to work in parallel to get that to market as fast as possible or publish a new version as quickly as possible. So having an authoring environment that allows teams of writers to actually work on the content itself, they can break out a branch of the conversation, work in a locked form, sync it back without colliding with other content that's been written, and being able to track revision controls in the context of the tool set, we think is super important to bringing a bot to market. So my name's Mike Houlahan. I won't let suffer through Q&A. I'll be around for the next day, and thank you very much for your time.